The invitation to my family's annual Christmas dinner sat unopened on my desk, its gold embossing gleaming under the morning sun. Beside it lay the latest issue of Ford's magazine, the one featuring my firm, Echo Environmental Solutions. On the cover, my face was angled just out of frame, but the irony was blinding. Wright, Alice's voice came through the intercom, crisp and steady. The Morgan Development Group is here for their emergency consultation. I smiled to myself, already knowing exactly who was about to walk through my door. Send them up. 5 years ago, my family had actually laughed, when I turned down a cushy role at my father's real estate firm to pursue a PhD in environmental science. Now, they were about to beg for help from the daughter they once mocked. The memory of that last Christmas dinner still burned like a brand. I'd just been accepted into Stanford's environmental science program, eager to share my dreams of sustainable development. Environmental science? My sister Victoria had choked out a laugh, hiding it behind her wine glass. What are you going to do, Sophia? Hug trees for a living? My father hadn't even glanced up from his phone. It's your life, waste it how you want, just don't expect a job at Wright Development when you're done. I had tried to explain. It's about responsible growth, about protecting communities, ecosystems. Protecting what? James, my brother-in-law, had scoffed. Our bottom line's the only thing that matters, not some bleeding heart crusade. Victoria had nodded approvingly. James just sealed the River Valley project. Millions in revenue. That's real success. The River Valley project. If only they'd listened. If only they'd cared when I warned them about building overprotected wetlands. I left that dinner an outsider, exiled for daring to dream differently. The next morning, my father called one last time, trying to pull me back in. This environmental nonsense isn't a career, Sophia. Victoria and James are running multi-million-dollar deals. Meanwhile, you're off worrying about endangered frogs. I had stood firm. If no one worries about them, Dad, there won't be anything left to build on. He hung up without a word. That was the last real conversation we ever had. Since then, I had earned my Ph.D., founded Echo Environmental Solutions under my mother's maiden name, and let my work speak for itself. In just 5 years, Echo had become the nation's leading environmental consulting firm. Corporations, government agencies, they all turned to us when they needed to solve problems they had created. Wright Development never connected Dr. Sophia Bennett, the reclusive founder of Echo, with the daughter they once dismissed. But today, that was about to change. I watched through the office window as my father's black company car pulled up. I knew Victoria and James would be with him. They always showed up together when the situation was dire. And it was dire. The River Valley project, their shining jewel, was unraveling. Sinkholes riddled the luxury development sites. Protected species were triggering regulatory shutdowns. Environmental lawsuits were mounting. They needed Echo's expertise. More precisely, they needed mine. My phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Victoria. This better not take long. These environmental consultants are all the same. Tree huggers looking for a payout. I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile curving my lips. Let the games begin. I took a slow, deliberate breath, remembering all the times they had dismissed my passion as useless, all the times James had snickered about my squirrel-saving degree at family gatherings, all the times my father had used their success as proof that I was on the wrong path. Dr. Bennett will see you now. Alice's voice broke through the fog of my thoughts. I stood, smoothing down my suit, tailored to perfection, a far cry from the tree-hugger look they probably expected. Through my office's glass walls, I saw them, my father, his stride full of self-assurance, Victoria, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor, James, fidgeting with his Rolex, the picture of impatience. They had no idea what was coming. I stayed seated behind my desk as they entered, the moment suspended in the air. Hello, family, I said, letting the weight of my words land, though I believe you're here to see Dr. Bennett. Victoria froze, her mouth, mid-sentence, hung open as she took in the scene. My father stopped so abruptly that James nearly collided with him. The shock was palpable. Sophia, Victoria whispered, her complexion paling beneath her makeup. I smiled, enjoying the irony. Yes, that's me, Dr. Sophia Bennett, founder of Echo Environmental Solutions. My father's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and then a dark flash of anger. You You're Dar Bennett, the founder of Echo? I nodded and gestured to the seats in front of me, letting them absorb the moment. That's me. Now, shall we discuss your little dilemma with the River Valley project? Before anyone could speak, James was the first to recover. This is absurd, he spat. You can't be the leading environmental consultant in the country. I cut in smoothly, sliding a Forbes article across the desk. The same expert you've just begged to save your billion-dollar project? I'm afraid I am. Victoria sank into a chair, her designer outfit suddenly feeling like a costume. All this time, she trailed off, eyes wide, struggling to process. Echo Environmental was you? I raised an eyebrow, surprised. I flipped open a file containing their project details. Funny what you can achieve with a useless environmental science degree, isn't it? My father's lips thinned as he stood rigid, his voice low but dangerous. If this is some kind of revenge. I laughed softly, a bitter edge to it. Revenge? If I wanted revenge, I would have just let your project collapse. I would have been a witness for the environmental group suing you. But instead, I'm here to help fix this mess. I leaned forward, eyes glinting. It won't be cheap, and it certainly won't be easy. I stood up, moving toward the screens displaying live data from the River Valley site. You've built on protected wetlands, you've ignored endangered species habitats, and you've violated at least 6 major environmental protection statutes. As for the sinkholes appearing on your luxury sites, that's what happens when you drain wetlands without proper environmental assessments. James shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We followed all the required procedures. The minimum required by law. I corrected him coldly, which is exactly what I warned you about 5 years ago. Not that any of you listened, of course. Victoria's eyes widened in recognition. The Christmas dinner, when you tried to tell us about sustainable development. When you were too busy mocking my career choice to actually hear me, I finished for her. Now, here we are. I pressed a button on my desk, pulling up detailed maps of their development site. The full scope of the disaster spread out before them. The good news, Echo can help you salvage this project. The bad news, I let the silence hang in the air. You'll need to redesign the entire development plan, implement extensive environmental protection measures, and you'll likely lose about 30% of your buildable area to wetland preservation. My father's jaw tightened, and his voice rose in anger. 30%? That's impossible. I gave him a cool look. It's reality, Dad, and if you want to salvage anything from this mess, you'll have to deal with it. The profit margins aren't my concern, I said, cutting my father off. This is what it will take to make your project legally compliant and environmentally sustainable. Take it or leave it. I slid thick folders across the desk to each of them. These are Echo's terms. Our consulting fee is $5 million, non-negotiable. You have 24 hours to decide. Victoria flipped through the documents, her hands visibly trembling. $5 million? She gasped. That's less than you'll lose if the lawsuits proceed, I said calmly. Far less than you'll lose when the site becomes completely unbuildable thanks to subsidence from the drained wetlands. My father sank into a chair, looking smaller, older than I had ever seen him. Why didn't you tell us about Echo? He asked hoarsely. About all of this? I leaned back in my chair, studying them. Would you have listened? I asked quietly. When have you ever listened? James cleared his throat, voice rough. The other developments we've done since River Valley, are they compromised too? I smiled thinly. Oh, worse, but we can talk about that, after you sign Echo's contract. Victoria exhaled a shaky breath, her designer jewelry catching the light. All those years we laughed at your degree, she murmured, and now you're the only one who can save our biggest project. Ironic, isn't it? I said, rising and returning to my desk. The tree hugger you dismissed is now charging you $5 million to fix what I tried to warn you about, for free. My father stared at the contract, jaw tight. We were wrong about you, Sophia, about all of it. Yes, I said steadily, meeting his eyes. The real question is, are you ready to start listening now? One by one, they signed. As they gathered their things, I called after them. Oh, Victoria.
She turned,
trying to summon her old poise. About that text you sent earlier, how environmental consultants are just tree huggers looking for payouts. I smiled coldly. You were half right. Echo's wire transfer instructions are on page 6. They left, subdued, their footsteps strangely small against the marble. I turned back to my window just in time to watch their expensive cars disappearing down the drive. Alice appeared with a glass of champagne. "Congratulations on landing the Wright development account," she said, grinning, "though I have a feeling this was about more than business." I took the glass, the cold bubbles hissing against the crystal. "Sometimes," I said, remembering that long ago Christmas dinner, their laughter like knives, "success isn't just about proving them wrong, it's about being so right they have no choice but to pay you millions to fix their mistakes." The next Christmas dinner was different. No mocking jabs about my career, no dismissive jokes. Instead, they leaned in, eager, hanging on my every word about sustainable development and environmental stewardship. Victoria had even enrolled in environmental management courses. My father, he restructured Wright Development from the ground up, making Echo its exclusive environmental consultant. It cost them millions, but saved them billions in avoided disasters. And me? I finally let Forbes photograph my face for the follow-up article. Dar. Sophia Bennett, How the Tree Hugger Became Real Estate's Environmental Savior. At night, sometimes, I stand at my office window, watching the city lights stretch into the distance, remembering the girl they laughed at for chasing endangered frogs. The woman they now depend on to survive. Success isn't about standing above the people who doubted you. It's about standing tall enough to see the pitfalls they refuse to believe in, and charging them seven-figure fees to help them avoid the fall. They called it revenge. I call it evolution.